welcome to Florida Fishy Finger. Please subscribe and click the notification bell before you forget. Hey, today we're going to talk about micro skiffs and the right way to power them. And there are a lot of ways to power them, of course, which you would choose if you decide to get one like I did. Ultimately, I look at the parameter, which is speed. Now, on a boat this size, an Ancona Shadowcast 16 micro skiff, all composite, lightweight, you don't need much engine, and the manufacturer will tell you, like they did at Ancona, what the best engine is. And as they did with me, discouraged me from going higher because it didn't fit the kind of goals I had, which they could see how they were accomplished better than I could, and I've never regretted it. This is a 20-horse Tohatsu. Four-cycle. So incredibly quiet. Fuel injected. I believe it runs on one cylinder when it's idling. It sips gas. Now, when I say sips gas, I mean I've run this boat for 8-9 hours in a row and never used more than 4 gallons of gas. So I don't know what the math is on that. You know, but these are 30+ mile missions out in the ocean, down the beach, in and out, in terms of near the beach, far out, 40-50 miles maybe in a day. And all I've got to provide fuel to that, let me get the camera in a certain angle here, see, is this. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a gas tank that they installed, and it's plumbed in. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's an 8-gallon gas tank, and that is more than you could ever use, I think, in a day, personally, on a boat like this. Okay, so I would go with, you know, lightweight boat, and just enough engine to get you to the speed you want to get at. In my case, I want to go around 30 miles an hour. I want to be able to move a bit, but I don't need to go fast. But I also want to be able to run in super skinny water. I mean, like, if I get into 4 inches, I want to feel confident. In this boat, you do. One of the reasons is you got this beautiful engine, which is a Mercury, by the way. Tohatsu's I don't know what the bottom horsepower is, but something like, you know, 20 horsepower and down, or something like that. You can correct me in the comments, please. Are actually manufactured by Mercury, and then they are branded as Tohatsu. So I've had Mercuries for years and love them. I know they're not a Yamaha, they're not, you know, everybody's whatever, everybody has their favorite brand. But the point is, this is the first Tohatsu I've ever had, but I've had lots of Mercuries and I love this thing. But look at this. Look at this. This is a tunnel hull. See that, ladies and gentlemen? That's what lets you run in 4 inches of water. Not to mention that the draft of this. Now, this is just to give you perspective. 1 hand, 2 hands. That's 2 hands of draft. So when you have this boat 10 miles out and 75, 80 feet of water, you feel it. The incredible circumstance that is. You almost look like a friend of mine told me he was going out on his big contender and passed us. We were out at a buoy 10 miles out, and he said, you look like you were standing on top of the water. But most people aren't going to take this boat out into the ocean. Most people are going to take this boat into a flat scenario, and it has almost no hull slap, poles like nothing you've ever imagined, and get you there. But first you got to get to the spot, right? And you want to get there rather quickly. So that's the way the Tohatsu. Okay, so now let me tell you about my experience with this engine. It's been a little problematic, but it's never let me down, so I'm not giving it a ding. Turns out it never didn't work. But I had a couple times it shut off recently. One of those times was 6 miles off the beach alone. That was a little scary. I did have a way to communicate back, but that sucked. Yeah, that gives you a certain feeling. And I just recently had it serviced as a result of that, but I'll get to that. First of all, it's always purred like a kitten and run great. When I first had it serviced, I think they installed the gasket wrong, and it leaked a bit. And you can see around this is kind of discolored, and that's because of that. It leaked a lot of oil, and I've never quite been able to clean it all off of there. But it ran no problem. I ran it for a whole season, believe it or not, and I did see some oil behind the boat. I took it in, got it serviced for its 1-year service, and they said, oh yeah, your gasket is leaking. And oh no, so they replaced it and redid, actually, they had a hard time understanding the engine. They were a Yamaha dealer typically, and they had to call Tohatsu. They said that, God, the compression's all wrong. The compression's all wrong. We don't know, what's something seriously wrong with your engine. And then they called Tohatsu, and I guess they told them, oh no, it's running on 1 cylinder when it's idling low, which was incredible to me. That's where I got that 1 cylinder thing from. But they identified the problem with the thing, and I really do believe it was at my 1-year service. They just installed the gasket wrong and it just leaked, ever so slightly, luckily. Well, they serviced it at that 1 year. At the 2nd year again, serviced it, repaired the gasket. We've been running great, and then it started to run a little more rough, and I did notice that it wasn't spitting as much water as it typically did, just a little less, which always alarms me. That's one thing I always watch. Whenever I turn the engines on, I always watch it. And I had been also, here's an interesting thing, never have done this before, and that is to flush the engine via the engine. It's being the intake on the engine. They had this little thing here, and you just screw a hose in there. Well, I had been flushing it there, but then leaving the engine running while I flushed it for like 5 minutes, sometimes longer. So I had somebody tell me that could be a bad thing. Well, long story short, I had that offshore experience. The light kept coming on, the indicator light for the engine kept coming on, and I took it in to get it serviced, and I'll be darned, there was water in the crankcase, but no shavings, thankfully. The gasket had to be replaced again, and they also replaced the internal oil pressure sensor, which was, I think, is what triggers the indicator that replaced. Well, I took it out and I ran it one time since, and it ran like a dream. Oh, the other thing was the water pump had melted, they said, and I attributed that to perhaps the fact that I had been flushing it via turning the engine on. I got it so hot I actually did something bad to it. So, I mean, melted is a thing. So anyway, I'm not going to do that anymore. The last time I took it out, I just flushed it by putting the hose in and running it for 5 minutes, and I think that's the best way to do it. You have to flush it every time if you want these engines to run well. I hose off my entire boat every time after going in the salt water, and that's critically important. Flushing the engine is even more important. Replacing a trailer, $1,000. Replacing an engine, much, much more. So that's my review. I would recommend you get the very minimum amount of engine you need to get to where you're going, unless, of course, that's not what you're into. Then you might look at one of these skiffs that has a 90 horse on an ultralight hull like this, and it absolutely flies. Who knows, I might get one of those in the future, but where I got to fit it in my garage now is about as much as I can handle. So hey, thanks for watching Florida Fishing Maker. Go ahead, subscribe, click the notification bell. Let me know what you think about this thing. Go get some fish in your neck of the woods.